As you may know, there was an HBO documentary that just came out that is called The Anarchists, and I'm in it quite a bit. And I was thinking that a lot of normal people, we call them normies, might be all new to this, but might be kind of curious. Like, what is this all about? These people, so crazy. They just want peace and love. I know it sounds crazy, right? The whole reason I'm doing this is for new people. Now, if you're a person who's known me for like the last 12 years of me doing this type of stuff, there might be some good info in here for you. But I'm mostly putting this first video out for people who just found out about me, just heard about anarcho-capitalism, and just typed it in and wanted to see what was there. So I'm going to get into, like, a lot of people probably have questions like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, what is this fringe group? It's not that fringe, but it is kind of fringe, yes. I'll say it right now. What we talk about is that the world would be a lot better if every interaction was voluntary and didn't use violence. Yes, that's all we basically say. And I've been banned everywhere. A lot of the people who talk about this stuff are banned. Not everyone, but a lot. And the ones that aren't banned are like super shadow banned. Like, we are basically, that's why we're fringe, because, I used to have like millions of people, like I get like 1 million views on a video like 8 years ago, 6 years ago. And then I started really talking about what's going on in the world and deleted. And especially after the last few years and really talking about what's going on with that psyop, that's just been deleted. So I thought I'd do like a starter video. So if you're brand new to this, you've never seen me before, you're like, who is this guy? Why is his collar popped? Seems a little arrogant. Seems a little pretentious. I can be, but I don't know. I don't know. It looks better to me. I know maybe it doesn't to you. This isn't a fashion channel, so let's move on. To all the new people out there who saw the first episode, because that's all that's come out so far, and you may have saw me on there, and you might be thinking, well, who is this guy? What are they talking about? All right, here's the story. About 20 years ago, I realized that a lot of things aren't what they tell us, and particularly things about central banking. And I had just lost everything in the tech bubble. And I found out afterwards why these bubbles happen. And it's due to central banking and money printing. And this led me to reading about Austrian economics and that sort of stuff. And as I was trying to sail around the world, and I sank my boat in El Salvador, by the way, 1 year to the date after I bought the boat, I started reading other things. And one of the first that really I liked was Doug Casey, who's still on YouTube. But, they try to like make it so you can't find this information. But just excellent stuff. And he was talking about anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism. In fact, Doug Casey was the first person who told me I was an anarchist. I didn't even know what the word was. And that was about almost 20 years ago. So I started reading everything on it, and I began to realize that this idea of, and basically the idea when we say don't use violence, that would mean no government could really exist. It's not, we don't even consider them to be legitimate. We consider them to be criminal organizations. A lot of people think that governments are just a fact of life. They're not really. They've been kind of like imposed for hundreds or thousands of years. And if you look into the whole history of it, like, it's just been, they've done everything to make it seem to your average person like this is totally normal. That every area has a criminal organization that extorts everyone, called taxation, and then they help people with it. It sounds pretty stupid when you think about it that way, and it is. And actually, when you look into you know, I was looking into Austrian economics, and even if the government wanted to be the best they could possibly be to help everyone in the country, which they never do, but if they did, let's say I was president, right, of wherever, a country, but if we extort everyone, so people did not agree to this, right? Did you ever agree to give half your money to the government that you work for, right? No, probably not. You may have signed tax forms and stuff, but you're probably misled into thinking that that's just normal. And you basically got tricked into it. That's basically what happened to most people. So, oh yeah, so if I was like a president and, you know, with my beliefs, I couldn't be, because I'd be like, well, we have to stop extorting people. And then people would be like, well, it can't really be a government if you don't extort people. And I'd be like, well, let's not do it then. Let that be it. But let's just say you forced me, and I had no other option but to be president of the country. And we've got all this money that's coming in from extortion, and even myself, like, I'm trying to think what I would do if I had to do it, right? If I had to accept this extorted funds and I had to do what I thought was best, you know what I would do? I'd just give it all back to everyone. That's what I would do. But like, these governments, they're all shams. They're all criminal organizations. And they just steal your stuff and tell you what you can do. So basically, most people in the world today basically live like slaves, and that's on purpose. The only way to change things, to make the world a better place, in my opinion, is just my opinion, but there's lots of data to show. There's been tons of anarcho-capitalists and Austrian economics people showing for decades. There's books and books and books. Look up Walter Block, look up Jeffrey Tucker. For people in the past, look up Murray Rothbard, Lysander Spooner. They've talked all about, they've actually done the numbers, and they're like, in general, for everybody, it'd be far better in every way if there was no thing called a government. It'd be better if people interacted voluntarily. And here's where a lot of people might come in and say, oh, it's such a utopian idea because some people are going to rob people. Yes, we know that. We're not stupid. Yes, of course. And that's why we've talked a lot about why private security is far better than police. And look at the police today anyway, right? Like, it's pretty rare when you're like, wow, they did a really great job. It's like, they cause most of the problems. And they kidnap and put people into rape camps that never hurt anyone. And that's all we're saying. So you might be watching this going, wait a second, like, they make it sound all scary. Yeah, they do, because they don't want you to know this information. All that we've realized that other people haven't yet is this whole system is criminal, and it'd be way better without it, in general. And in fact, all the people who still believe in that system have mostly been led to believe that through literally mind control. Look at the, standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Does this not seem a little, a little odd, And most kids are forced to go there when they're like 5 years old and pledge their allegiance to who? The state. The state doesn't even exist. It's an idea. But they've all, including probably yourself, if you're new to this, and I don't mean this in a bad way. In fact, if you're watching this, you're so close to breaking out of the mind control, and your life could be a lot better afterwards. You might actually go through a bit of a grievance period when you realize you grew up in a cult. But there's lots of people out there like us that we're very happy to try to help you through the process. We've all gone through it ourselves, of realizing everything we've been told is basically a lie. And the truth is, the world would be so much better if more people understood this and then started reducing their governments, right? Like, a lot of people say we're very radical. We want to get rid of all governments. If you gave me a button right now and you said, if you press that button, all governments on Earth tomorrow don't exist, I'd have to think long and hard about it, because I know that would come with a lot of consequences for a lot of people. And I actually meditate a lot. If you would have asked me this 5 or 10 years ago, I'd say yes, I would press that button, because I know, or I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, like pretty sure, that things would be much better. There might be a messy period after that, but here's the thing, they'll probably just make more governments, right? So a lot of this is about just helping people realize more of the truth, and then over time, they will likely stop supporting large governments and all the things they do. And if enough people start to get into that, over time, the governments will just fade away. And all of a sudden, imagine working, and so you work like all year long, most people work very hard, and you keep all the money you make. I know, it's very radical. It's bizarre that they try to say, people like myself are super radical and dangerous. In a way we are, because the people who are saying that are so invested in the current system that if people started to understand what we were talking about, they would lose a lot of the money they make and the power they get from controlling and extorting people. I wanted to give just a brief introduction to myself to new people on a place like YouTube, so hopefully this video stays up. If you watch this and you see like the next day it's deleted and you didn't realize how bad it is, the censorship of these ideas, well, you'll find out pretty quick. In fact, like most people don't know what it's like for people like myself. For the last 15 years, basically, I've been saying these sort of things, and I've been shut down. I've been in jail numerous times. Sometimes it's because I actually, cause a problem with police or, that sort of a thing. But all my stuff just shut down constantly. All the people that I know, like, we're always banned everywhere. And all we're saying is this: have you heard anything crazy yet? Does anything I've said sound even remotely crazy? It's like, it'd probably be a lot better without all this extortion and criminal activity, and there'd be no wars and less poverty, especially after the central banks are gone, because you can't have a central bank without a government. I'll leave that to another day. That's a whole other topic. But I'll just sort of relay to you that a bit of my background as I got started at the beginning. So started with finding out I was an anarchist, which just means I believe that people should not be slaves. Yes, that's all it is. Now you'll see some anarcho-communists in the comments saying, real anarchy, you need like this central planning committee who makes it so you can't have money, you can't have property, you can't trade, and you can't have even a company where there's a boss, because they somehow tied in anarchy with hierarchy. They should call themselves anarcho-hierarchists. Anyway, so there's not that many of them, but they're really loud. Lots of confusion. I've actually been reading a number of the articles from the HBO thing, and people are very confused. I guess most people haven't heard this stuff before. You have to understand, for myself and people I generally deal with, we've been talking about this nonstop for 20 years. And so to hear like people coming new to it, and they just don't get even the concept. It's bizarre to us. But when a lot of us started talking about this in the last 20 years, we all thought there's no chance that this idea will catch on anywhere. Larkin Rose, who's also in the documentary, said on my show Anarcast, which is also in the documentary, which I don't do anymore but still exists if you want to check it out. It's on YouTube still, somehow. But they super shadow banned it. It used to get like 30,000 views, now it gets like 300. Yeah, when I asked Larkin 10 years ago, do you think there's any chance this will catch on? He was like, no, not for centuries. And you know what? I've heard him say since that it's catching on so fast you can't believe it. And you have to understand Larkin Rose, who's also in that documentary. He's one of the modern intellectual thought leaders in terms of, he writes books, he thinks deeply about things, he makes his arguments, here's why this is how it is or should be, that sort of thing. Very intelligent. And when he started, his story is that when he realized he was an anarchist, like a real anarchist, someone who just believes governments really shouldn't exist. It'd be much better if they didn't. They really are illegitimate and shouldn't exist, but they do. We understand that. We're not delusional. But when he first started doing a lot of this stuff, he said he knew maybe 3 people on Earth who he could call a real anarchist or anarcho-capitalist. 3 people. And that was after years of coming to this realization. And even Jeffrey Tucker used to talk about how he'd be in a room with Murray Rothbard, who's like one of the top, I don't know how you would say it, like he's dead. Like he died a long time ago. He's doing this stuff like 50 years ago, basically. But they used to sit around in a living room. I think Ayn Rand was there. And just so you know, we're not all super Ayn Rand. Like, we're not objectivists, if you know what that is. Most of us. Some people are. But I'm not. But anyway, so they used to sit around. They said that there might be 10 people like them, which is like me now, on Earth. That was like 20, 30 years ago. Now, as you can see with the conference and stuff, it's thousands of people. It's hundreds of thousands. Well, I would say, and I've been in this for nearly 20 years now, so I really have seen the growth. It's millions now. It used to be 3, 20, 30 years ago. That's incredible. And you might be thinking, how could such just a good idea, or just like such a rational thing, like people really shouldn't rob each other, how can this be so fringe, or so few people have heard about it? You know, honestly, I don't know. I don't know how humanity made it for so long without realizing this information, but they didn't. Like, some of the first people who thought this way were people like Lysander Spooner. I think that was like in the 1800s. And you know, they were just like us now. They're like, people thought they're kind of crazy. A bit of my background, in case you're still wondering about it, is I found out I was an anarchist. I read everything on Earth about it for like 5 years. I had a background in financial stuff. I had a financial website in Canada, which actually went to 7 different countries, grew to a size of $240 million in the 1990s, about stock market stuff. And it was basically like the Street.com or MarketWatch, but it was called Stockhouse. It wasn't as big in the US, so you might not have heard of it, but it was the biggest in Canada, it was the biggest in Australia, it was pretty big in Hong Kong. Anyway, so I had that background, and after knowing a lot of that stuff, and then knowing this new information, it was actually perfect, because I came from a bit of a capitalist background. That whole word is totally, when I say capitalist, I mean just free market. I don't mean anything else. What you have in the US today is so far from capitalism in general that you might as well just call it communism, because the government's so involved in everything, right? So I started the Dollar Vigilante in 2010 with my partner Ed Bugos, and we called it an anarcho-capitalist financial newsletter, and it's actually done incredibly well. We recommended Bitcoin at $3 in 2011. We recommended Ethereum at $2 in 2016. I knew all those people. I knew Vitalik. We were so excited about cryptocurrencies because we saw it as a way to get rid of central banks and fiat currencies. And it's going very well. So I started that, and then I realized that people really didn't understand anarchy very much. And there was so many great people like Larkin Rose and so many people that weren't getting any attention. So I started up a channel on YouTube, which is still there. You can still see it. They've super shadow banned it, but you can still find it if you look hard enough. And that was 2011. I did 500 episodes. And you know what? I'm kind of going back to my roots, because I started off mostly starting Anarchast in 2011, talking only about things to do with anarchy, anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism, these sort of things. I stopped like a few years ago, but maybe I'll now continue here. So if you're new to all this stuff and you're just trying to figure out what it's all about, I hope I gave you some decent information there. Sometimes people really get distraught when they realize they've grown up in a lie. But you know, when I found out about this stuff, I didn't get distraught at all. I got excited because I knew there had to be something better. And for the first time, we're actually getting this information out. Like, you have no idea. This has taken 20 years for us to get on any mainstream channel and say anything about what we believe. It took that long. And now we're here. So we'll see what happens. It's actually up to you. It's up to everybody. If you like this information and if you want to see the world change for the better and become freer, then do your part and share these videos or whatever. Tell your friends about it. Oh, and just to mention again, if you do like what I've been talking about and you want to get more stuff, definitely check out all our stuff. Vigilante is really, if you go to dollarvigilante.com, you'll find everything.